When I was in Costa Rica for an ayahuasca experience, I was really calling in my partner. And I remember in one ceremony seeing this woman in front of me, and the energy, now having had that experience, it was exactly reminiscent of how I experienced Lauren at an energetic level. And she was sitting in front of me. And the wildest thing is, what I named her in after that ceremony was White Rose. That was like, and so as part of my like meditations and prayers, like I always say, like I have one guide who's Sacred Eagle and White Rose, and her middle name's Rose.
Oh my God, Rose. Seriously?
And so like, and the energy, yeah.
Oh my God, I just got goosebumps. Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. You guys know me. My name is Mimi, and next to me, I have the man that I have been in love with since I was 17 years old, Chase.
Wow. What is going on, everybody? Extra excited today. And it's not just because I'm filled with tobacco and caffeine from already a couple hours worth of hard work this morning.
Vaporized tobacco.
Let's be clear. But it's because we've got some really great friends on the show today. We've got Mike and Lauren, both of which just have a wealth of knowledge, but have recently leaned into parenting and cultivating this incredible holistic family that they have. And so we're just so excited to have you both here.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so stoked. We've been looking forward to this since you guys reached out. But then also, as I was briefly sharing with Mimi on the podcast we recorded just yesterday, we've been admiring and appreciating you guys from afar. And so, and I know you had brought Mimi up. That was kind of a mutual feeling. So we're just delighted to be here.
Yeah, likewise, for sure. Well, let's get right into it. Our first question that we ask every guest on the Medicine, and I would love to hear from each of you. Whoever wants to go first can. But our first question is, what do you love in your life? What aspect of your life do you love so much that you wish you could gift it to every human?
Wow, that's a beautiful question.
I got mine right away. Right away. I think the biggest thing, especially as it relates to our relationship, is the fact that we have very harmonious and aligned and clear core values, both individually and then as a family. I think that was absolutely huge before bringing Luca into the world, is really coming up with, as a family, what are our core values as a unit. And I really do feel like, that's not to say we don't experience challenges, because we absolutely do. However, when it's held or rooted in that common ground of, okay, we may be challenged, we may be seeing things differently, but if we're to come back to the heart of what this disagreement is or what we're moving forward in, we have very aligned core values as a family unit. And that in and of itself, if I were to inspire whatever someone listening, it would be to establish that individually and then collectively as a team.
I love that. I'm going to give Lauren a few more seconds to think here and ask you if you could speak to 2 or 3 of those core values off the top of your head. Like, what comes to mind when you think of we share core values? You want to speak to that, sweetie?
Go for it.
Yeah. The 2 that are immediately at the top of my head are kindness and respect. Kindness, respect, and integrity. Those are kind of like 3 very big ones. And both her and I are very clear that kindness is different than, for example, just simply being nice. And sometimes the kindest thing to do is the most challenging thing to do. So we've been very rooted in that as a family unit of, that's really how we want to bring up Luca. And then respect and integrity. And so that is a continual journey for us, especially, we're very big on integrity of word first and foremost. So do we say what we're going to do? And if we're not, it certainly causes some internal stress. And then also integrity of the heart. Are we living according to our heart's compass and our heart's purpose? And then even just physical integrity. So are we taking care of our body? Do we have enough physical integrity in our structure to show up as healthy as possible for ourselves and for each other? So yeah, kindness, respect, and integrity are huge.
So good. Just pillars. And I would say that we're similar in some ways, but I love that so much.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking about my own life, and I had a beautiful upbringing, challenge for sure. I've had too many moments where I butted heads with my parents to count. but they did a really incredible job about creating that foundation. And although it wasn't vocalized, hey, these are the core values of the family, something like integrity was palpable. And in my most challenging moments throughout life as an adult, I've been sitting in that space where I could have made a significantly worse decision had I not had the backbone that was programmed in. And we don't get me wrong, we talk a lot about unhealthy programs that our environment and our family potentially put in us as we're young. But there's also these like the establishment of core values that are so important that end up being your backbone when life hits you in the face, and you can make a choice, life affirming, or you can choose something out of fear and avoidance. And it's been in those moments. And it was when I was leaving Christianity, oddly enough. It was when I was leaving my financial career, both of which was like, I will not be in integrity if I choose to continue to partake in this, knowing that I am out of alignment with it. And like those core values are so vitally critical for the moments when shit hits the fan in life. And you have to rely on your own ability to have a backbone, something that's been embedded within you that is deep and solid and made of structure. And so I could not align with you more in the sense that the core value container in the dynamic of a family is just like wildly important.
Yeah. Yeah. Core ethos. What about you, Lauren? Does anything come up for our first question? What do you love so much you wish you could gift?
Yeah, it's actually something that I've found in my partner as well. And I think it's something that we share and really helps keep our relationship vibrant and alive. And that's just curiosity and the absolute obsession with learning. I mean, we have been lifelong students. We hope to continue to be that forever. I think that's a joint value that I see in you guys as well, is just, I mean, Paul Check is one of all of our mutual mentors. And just the rabbit holes that this world presents us, like to just dive into and explore, and always keeping this just frequency of curiosity, and that the beginner's mind comes up with that too. There's a humbleness built into that, like just eagerness to learn, but it's also a lot of fun. I mean, I think the most fun things that we've done in our relationship are those like spontaneous or just those peak curiosity moments. That keeps, too, like to have like a long-term, lifelong relationship. I mean, I think those bits of novelty, like that's kind of maybe more the shadow side for me, is like, I love novelty. I'm always looking for the next iteration of something, even if it's like revisiting something that I've already studied. But that's something that I think if everyone had, life would be a lot more fun for a lot more people. And yeah, we strive to always learn more every day. And that's something that we've practiced in our relationship too, is really reflecting back to each other. Big takeaways of the day or curiosities. We have this new ritual now, which we've kind of just organically created. But at 7:00 at night, when it's about time for Luca to go down, we'll go for our drive, our like evening drive, because he's working all the time, and it's sometimes it's hard to really get those deep conversations now that we're parents. So 7:00, we can hop in the car, and he grew up in the city that we're living in now. And so it's cool to like revisit his childhood. And he's like, that's where I used to do that. And, I get to explore more of, his background. And then we have this really special time to just reflect on what we've learned that day. So that's been a cool practice.
That's so cool. I love that you're, oh, good. We love it.
You go ahead, my love.
I was just going to say, I think that's so wonderful that you guys are, instead of being frustrated that, oh, Mike's working and, he's obviously like providing for you guys and providing for the family and living in his purpose, obviously, which I'm sure, I've gotten to speak to Mike a little bit yesterday, and I know that you're lit up by your work. So it's a gift to be able to live that way. And instead of being frustrated, like, oh, we don't have enough time together, you're creating it. You are taking agency over the place and the season that you guys are in, instead of being frustrated. And, maybe there's some frustration there.
It's funny you say that, because that was the word. Like last night we had one of those tipping points. I had one of those tipping points, and he came out from like a long day, and his energy was high. And I was like, I'm just not there right now. Like, and that frustration was we check in with each other and we really have like language, fortunately, for, hearing where each other's at and hopefully creating the container where it's safe enough to share. But, when those emotions are at that, when I'm just exhausted or whatever, and I feel like I have no energy on board, one, it's a huge gift to have a partner to be able to like kind of tease out for me, like what I need in that moment. 'Cause that's been hard for me to vocalize sometimes. So yeah, just to be fully honest and upfront, like we certainly have that, but like we've learned and we've developed tools of like what to do with that, you know, and sometimes it's more productive than others, to be honest. Last night I didn't fully get to that, like, and I'm good again moment, like I needed a night's sleep and reflection and all that. But yeah, I do think that we try and alchemize to the best of our ability.
Yeah, well, you guys are still human, and at least I haven't seen you guys floating yet. So like, we all have our things, and we all have our days, and it's like, what are you doing 80 or 90% of the time? Of course, we're going to have those days. It's like we have to also have compassion for ourselves and knowing that you're navigating a very new season of life individually and together. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's beautiful that you guys can alchemize. Were you going to say something, babe?
Well, I've got multiple things going on in my head. One thing I love about that phrase, like alchemy, is what the container of the family should represent. The world is crazy enough. Like our external environment is chaos. The space of the family and the container of the family is one to alchemize that chaos and transmute it into something that can be life affirming and love giving. And that's where I think we miss the boat oftentimes in humanity, is family ends up being as chaotic, if not more, than the external world. And it's only exponentially increasing that chaotic environment, and it becomes pervasive through life. And as you engage in conscious relationships, whether that be romantic, friendship, ideally for people, it's with their employer and it's with these other domains, these men's work and these circles that are able to come together. It's a space of alchemy, and it says, hey, the world is crazy. But when we come inside of this space, we get to take that craziness and transmute it into something that's more beautiful. And we come out of it with more energy. It's less depleting. And that might sound really romantic for someone who doesn't have any kids over here. But that's really how I like to think of it. It's something that I want to lean into. And the other thing I just love that you said is how critically important curiosity is. There's such a clear difference when we were married versus where we are at now, having divorced and then reconciled, is that we lived on our childhood nostalgia as the component that kept us bound together in our marriage. And we weren't creating new memories, much less having curiosity as to who each other was transforming into. And that is something that is such a lifeline now. And it's as simple as, I'm reading this book about Steiner, and he's articulating, XYZ about the metaphysical realm. And then we have this dialogue that goes on an hour, and we're creating new ideas. We're actually bringing forth, massaging together these new ideas and these new ways of being with each other that layer in novelty that becomes nostalgia, of course, but at least you're like continuing to layer in new experiences, new thoughts, new ideas, and you're not pulling all the way back to the honeymoon phase of your relationship in order to remember why you're still in it. And so I just love that those two, both the alchemy idea and then the curiosity component were brought up, because I think that underrated aspect of relationship advice is just the simple commitment to staying curious.
Well said.
Yeah. It keeps you. I loved that as well. And when I think of curiosity, I think of openness. And whether that's individual curiosity, where you're curious about your own internal state, your own internal world, you keep peeling back the layers, and instead of flogging ourselves for what we did wrong or what we haven't figured out, what we haven't mastered yet, it's like, okay, I wonder why I'm responding that way. Let me think on that. Like, I wonder what's coming up for me. And it's such it adds some levity to some of the difficult circumstances that still come our way in life. We can't get away from difficulty or difficult circumstances in our life. But if we approach it with this note of curiosity for ourselves, and then also in relationship, like Chase was saying, and then just also for the world, like we live in an insane place. The fact that we're all on this earth spinning how many thousands of miles an hour, the fact that the universe is conspiring for us to be in this moment with you guys, having this conversation, gifting it to our listeners. It's just like, man, you meditate on that kind of thing for like 2 minutes and you're blown open if you have that approach of curiosity. So yeah, I know we definitely line up with you guys wholeheartedly in that way. I would love to know, I haven't heard the story and I don't know much about your guys' personal relationship story. Can you give us, give us the story of how you got together, what attracted you, and ultimately, how did you know that this was your person?
Wow.
You want to lead that one, sweetie?
Sure. Yeah. So Mike and I have known each other for over 10 years now, as colleagues, as co-students. The Czech Institute is what connected us and what's connected me to many of my dear friends. And so that was the common link. And I think going back to like rooted in our core values, like once we established for ourselves, like what our core values were as, young adults, I think that's what really magnetically attracted us to each other. And it took a long time. It took 10 years of, like distant friends and, we'd take courses together here and there, platonic. And then over the years, COVID really is what connected us. And another layer deeper, that it was actually in a medicine ceremony that he had invited me to. And man, I'll let you elaborate on more of that night, because it's crazy to try and sum up in a couple sentences, but our hearts and our souls really just recognized each other. There was that opening that you kind of talked about, where it was like, I don't know, it was magic, really. I mean, I think that the medicines and the plants can really conspire to know things that we don't, and it's kind of like, wow, one of those stories of you've been here all along, and what we've said since that night, and what I've said is like, we weren't ready for each other until that exact moment of that opening, of that softening, of enough healing within ourselves and journeying of inwards and finding out who we are and really solidifying those core values of how we wanted to live and who we wanted to be with. Another kind of layer of the magic of, I think, what called us into each other. We were both independently doing Joe Dispenza's morning and evening meditations the year prior, consistently, like daily for maybe 3 to 6 months, I'd say, for me. And we were really just imagining, or I'll speak for myself, I was imagining what it would feel like who would this person feel like who would I feel like being with this person? Really just from an emotional, energetic level, like embodying that version of me. And it wasn't until months after we dated that we kind of made that connection. He was like, I did those meditations at the same time. Wow. So we were literally like independently doing this 6 months before connecting romantically. And so that was pretty wild. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, really. Yeah. I guess you could, but we're not. What else do you remember?
Oh man, there was so much in that. Well, as part of that medicine ceremony, it was so, I'd been single for 8 years before that, and my last relationship didn't quite end well. And so there was a lot of healing that needed to happen. And what had come up for me, at least, was, I had thought I had done a fair bit of healing on my own, but it wasn't until meeting her, being in that space, that I'm like, it was so scary, because the medicine ceremony had ended and we were in a friend's house who was leading it. And so you could kind of, at the end of the ceremony, kind of just grab a couch or whatever you wanted to do. So ceremony was complete. And so we're sitting there, and she was guided into the room. She's like, hey, is it okay if I sleep on this part of the couch and sleep here? I was like, yeah, no problem.
No, it was more like move over. Like I'm sleeping here.
Okay,
like it was dark. He was like in it. So
well, right before she sat down, I remember because I had gotten there first and I had like the blanket and I was like, I had forgotten that at the end of the ceremony, they had some fruit out. So it was a mushroom ceremony. So I had eaten some citrus. I don't know if it was pineapple or what. And that reactivated the medicine. So like, as soon as she started sitting down, I was like, hold on. And I was like, I just want to let you know, I'm about to go deep again. And from that point on, it was such a challenging experience. So I didn't sleep a wink for 7 hours or whatever it was till the morning. She didn't sleep. And I was so, the best way I could describe it is I was fighting this metaphorical dragon. And I didn't quite realize it until quite a bit later to integrate the messages. But it was like this felt sense of, for me, I had such walls built up around partnership and that trusting again, that a part of me and my soul, how I feel, was like, felt that there was a soul connection there, and I would allow myself to feel it, and then there would be immediate collapse. And it was just literally, I was just fighting it over and over. And I was so challenged that I couldn't even speak. And that was the moment like that I feel that my soul knew that she was my person, because I was so beyond words grateful that she just sat there and held space. We didn't say anything. And all I could say was like, at certain moments, like, thank you. Thank you. And I was like, holy fuck, this girl's got my back no matter what. And so, but it was a very challenging experience. And so I'm infinitely grateful to that ceremony, to her being there, to the medicine, because I don't know how long it would have taken me to have the courage and to step into starting to take down those walls brick by brick. And this felt like something was coming down with a sledgehammer. So I'll share, that was I would say that was the big moment. However, I've got this interesting relationship with visions. And like I've seen my son multiple times before he came, but he came as a bald old man. And like he comes... Side story. And when he came out, he looked like a bald old man. Yeah. It was kind of funny. So we joke about that. But when I was in Costa Rica for an ayahuasca experience, I was really calling in my partner. And I remember in one ceremony, seeing this woman in front of me, and the energy, now having had that experience, it was exactly reminiscent of how I experienced Lauren at an energetic level. And she was sitting in front of me. And the wildest thing is, what I named her in after that ceremony was White Rose. That was like, and so as part of my like meditations and prayers, like I always say, like, I have one guide who's Sacred Eagle and White Rose, and her middle name's Rose.
Oh my God, Rose. Seriously?
And so like, and the energy, yeah. And
oh my God, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So, and I've said that prayer every single day that I meditate. Damn. What I've always just like, thank the medicines, I think, or whatever that I've worked with. I thank my guides, and it's always Sacred Eagle, White Rose, and then the family members who have passed. And so there was a recognition, I really think, years ago, and then the dispenser work. So there's all these like little breadcrumbs and clues, some that were big openings and some that were more nuanced. But yeah, that's really what speaks to me right now.
Yeah. And I think too, again, what that ceremony and other ceremonies have really allowed, at least in my experience of you and myself, I'm sure, is like that opening of the heart, where it's a disarming, because you'll say, and you shared with me that, you know, you were energizing and so to speak, wanting to call in a relationship long before we actually connected. But was your life really created in a way to allow that? Absolutely not. You know, and that's why I say like COVID really helped us create that space and that opportunity, because he was traveling all over the world. I was like we were saying one thing and living something else. And I think that that's something that many people, probably consciously or not, are doing, right? It's like words are powerful, but they only go so far if your behavior isn't aligning with that. And especially if your behavior is not aligning with that higher person that you really ultimately want to end up with. I mean, we can all find people to be placeholders, you know, like that's not challenging to be in any relationship, but to be in the one that's really, for life. I think that's it's a lot of baby steps of every day. Like, how am I creating this space in my life to call in this person? Really, really relevant and important points. We get the question often from our show and our community, as we talk a lot about relationships and the folks who are single out there, and they're just really very deeply interested and, borderline desperate for like a conscious partner. Mm-hmm. And the question is like, how do I call this in? There's an awareness that it's not just like grabbed and found, but this sort of calling in practice. And you're nailing it, where there's this framework of time and attention to the opening process. And then there's an integration of those openings into the real world. And if you're not making some level of change in the expression of your physical existence to mirror what you're opening towards, it really does get challenging to find the person. And there's such an important piece to, like, if you're feeling and making change internally and opening to the interest of having a conscious partner, to then see changes in your actual physical manifestations of decision making and the way that you live your life. And I think both of us similarly had a process when we were apart, of course, having no clue that it would be our ex-husband and ex-wife that we'd be calling back in. So cool. But wild, I went through when we were split up, like literally months before we got back together, a Joe Dispenza, which is like an endurance. Yeah, that's a commitment. It is a marathon of meditating, and with his voice too, which is like kind of whiny in your head. Like, sure. It's a legit task, but really, really powerful. And Mimi was doing something similar, where she was in this. So cool. We'd both hit these rock bottoms in our lives and gotten to this point where we were just like, damn it, dude. I needed to get to a place where I didn't have bitterness and pessimism from our divorce. I was just really ready to start fresh. And you had quite literally a calling in of a partner, a conscious partner. And it, no coincidence that it was only months later that we found ourselves back in friendship, and then what ultimately led to a relationship reconciliation. And so, not to be underrated, like there is a process for this, and a deep, meaningful process. Yeah. I want to pull on something that Mike said. I think that is really important in the conversation around people who are wanting a partner, an intentional, conscious partner to add to their life, not to make their life, but to add to it, add love to it. You said, you meditated, or you were thinking about how you would feel in the presence of your partner, and just focusing on how you want to feel and how that would feel. You might have said it a little bit differently, but I think that that's really important. Instead of, in our society, in our swipe right, swipe left society that focuses on the external, obviously that's part of it. We all want to be attracted to our partner and our partner to be attracted to us, of course, but there's so much more to it. And I think what some people focus on more is like, is he over 6 feet? Does she have big boobs? Does this, does that? Does he have the car? Does she have this? Is she self-sufficient? And instead, I think it's more productive to focus on, how do I want to feel when I'm in the presence of my person? And when you meditate on that in any sort of consistent way, when you meet that person, when you're around them and you're like, oh my God, that's how I want to feel. This is what I've been meditating on. That feeling is very familiar, and your intuition, your soul, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, is able to recognize it more quickly. And I would say that's one thing that really assisted us. I'll speak for myself. It definitely added to my assurance, my confidence that I was making the right decision, because I had done those meditations where I was connecting to the heart of my person, whoever he was, not knowing that it was going to be Chase, my ex-husband, but I was connecting to his heart, and I was thinking about how I wanted to feel in relationship, and how I wanted my partner to make me feel, safe, loved, treasured, admired, and so all of those things I think are really important. So if anyone's out there and you haven't engaged in some sort of practice on focusing on the feeling, I think that's a really good place to
pick up, maybe not start, but pick up and jump there. And you might open yourself in a way that was not available previously.
Could I share something on that, Mimi?
Yeah.
Like, because I think that you're absolutely right. And, in addition to that, one thing that I've learned within myself, and Lauren knows this really well, like in that time frame, and it's been conscious work, the checklist is something that I think, like you were saying, does it hit these boxes? Every single time I would even go on a blind date, and I had some pretty like horror stories on that. Like Lauren still gives me shit. Yeah, catfished. Learned what that word was. I had but all that to be said, like even younger, the moment that a level of vulnerability would open up, I would make all these reasons about why that person didn't fit the checklist that I came up with,
including me at the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And absolutely. And what I've realized is, when I looked back, so there's a lot of layers here, but in that meditation with Joe Dispenza, we both had written down and but it was all the feeling, the memories, the conversations, the things we're going to do. And she met and exceeded every single one of those. However, where there was a huge block for me is the recognition that checklist was actually a way that I was hiding from actually allowing myself to be vulnerable and allowing myself to even be opened up with this. And that was a really big awareness that we kind of use the analogy that, not even relationship, but every time I would date a girl, they'd come through the front door and it was like barricaded up. And we say Lauren came in through the back door, knocked it down, found a key under the mat, which was that opening of the medicine, which allowed, because for so long, for 8 years, immediately I would have a conversation with a lady or whatever. There might be some interest, but then immediately I'd be like, nope. And that was my way of basically lying to it. Maybe there was some truth in it, but lying to a part of myself, saying that, yes, I've got this, if she's not aligned in these ways, then she's not going to be my partner. But actually it was a way that I was hiding and trying to avoid the vulnerability and the softening. And so that checklist, I think the feeling component is so huge in the visioning, and then also recognizing is, what purpose is that checklist serving? Is it actually genuinely moving us to a greater place of alignment, or is it being an escape mechanism that some part of us is trying to keep us safe?
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. And I think that there's so much validity to that, and people can take the time to self-reflect if they're using it as a sort of shield or a barrier.
Yeah.
But something I just thought of is and I don't know how I feel about this, I'm just, throwing shit out there. What if there was some component of your higher self or whatever communicating no, you're not ready, she's coming? What if it was because it wasn't Lauren, and the woman wasn't meant to open you up in that way because she wasn't your person? Wow. Because Lauren is your person. So I don't know if obviously I have no say over what is the reality, but it just made me think because I've had situations like that. Chase has certainly had situations like that where we think back and we're like, damn, yeah, I was really closed off, or I was really this. And then I've also had thoughts where I'm like, no, but it wasn't the right time because it wasn't Chase. So it wouldn't have mattered if I was open, because it wouldn't have led to Chase. What are your thoughts?
I love that.
That feels super accurate. The timing component's huge. That's why we've known each other for 10 years, and yet why was it at that specific moment, the right timing, the right place, that an opening was created, and then COVID happened. So it's I absolutely really appreciate that reflection, and I haven't thought of it from that way. So that feels pretty spot on.
Yeah. And I think there's that saying, life makes sense backwards, or life makes sense in hindsight, know, and it's all of those, little time placeholders. We've pondered this. It's wild how every second changes the trajectory of our life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every single moment is monumental and can be a complete, trail shift. Right. So I think there's magic in all of it. And what you said is probably very likely. And so my belief system around there is a part of us, our higher self, that does know and is just watching us do this dance with all these different people at different times. And it's like, little do you know,
Yeah.
you know, those are the breadcrumbs to, you know, your soul's path. I love that.
Yeah. It could be both, right? It could be a little bit of both where, maybe you were closed off, but there was a function to it.
There's necessary. Exactly.
Yeah.
There was no girl who was getting close. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I laugh too, like, because we've been friends, right? So it's like, he's the only, I mean, I think that there's plenty of people who have platonic, you know, male, female relationships, but like the first time, like we went out for dinner and I'm like, is this a date? Like, he's terrible at communicating, like what it was just.
He was a little rusty.
Clearly.
We had a great time.
We had a great time.
Yeah, but
like,
that's it. That's it. The night ends, you go on your end.
It's so funny. He's such a,
there's a right way to do it.
It took time. But I think that was really great for, to disarm any agenda that I could have had too, or either of us could have had around like really just like the truth of. And I remember thinking like, okay, if that wasn't a date, then I in my heart want him in my life in any capacity. Like he's our soul, we're soulmates to whatever degree that is. Like we're friends soulmates, we're lover soulmates. Like there's so many, like once you recognize a person at that level, it's like the agenda goes out the window, I think. And that's like a really green light to like, okay, like whatever this looks like, I don't care. Like I just want you in my life, right? I imagine you guys have some version of that with your story.
Yeah, something similar.
We talk about often just leaving space in the relationship, and it's kind of like that surrender to, I know we're supposed to be in this, and I'm open to the experiences that are going to come through it and the lessons that we get to learn through it. And of course, I would love to steer that in a particular direction, all while leaving space for the unpredictable, both experiential as well as just like learned knowledge through it. And it may not look how I want it to look, but like I'm really in this. You know, the level of intention that you both described as you went out and opened to the idea of relationship. What does that look like now that you're together and you're cultivating a family dynamic and a marriage? A term that our mutual friend, I believe, Jason Picard, often talks about is the high dream of one's life or of a relationship, and that there's a best version, a functioning version of a relationship that one would deem the most productive, the most abundant, and how important it is to get clear on what that high dream of the relationship looks like. What does the high dream look like for you two in your relationship? When is it firing on all cylinders? And then what are you leaning into as far as your family dynamic? And what would that look like when it's firing on all cylinders?
I haven't heard that term high dream, but I love that. And I think, like even again, back to Chuck's work, like having a dream and having like a vision is not only inspiring, but it's like a roadmap, it's like, okay, how, like in the little that I do know, like how can I get to that place, like one step at a time. And I mean, again, back to like, we're big dreamers, like, and we love to just imagine what the possibilities are. And after having Luca, I think, well, one for me, like just a little side story, I wasn't a woman who absolutely needed to have children. Like that was, I mean, I think part of me always knew that I did want that at some level, but it wasn't in order to be happy and fulfilled, like this is my purpose. I feel that very in my purpose now after having him, 1000%. But the high dream for our family now, like, I mean, I can't imagine it without having children. Like he was the man that opened that possibility, that higher dream for me, because in prior partnerships, it was like, I didn't feel, I think subconsciously didn't feel safe enough to even go there with my dreaming. But after, having years together, and we have a pretty beautiful conception story, in my opinion. But like, it was just family. Now, like, it feels like that is our purpose. Like we are here to, we were brought together to co-create Luca. Like he is our legacy, and who knows what will come from that if we have more babies or not. But it's like, just to have that creation. Like I don't remember who shared this. It might have been Jordan Peterson, but it was something around having the decision to have children is really opens up an entire new arena of what is possible in life. And there's plenty of ways to be fulfilled and happy and, in service without having children. I do believe that. But there's another, like what we've experienced and what I've experienced is like, it's a whole nother level now. Like I feel like we're like starting at square one of like what's possible. And yeah, there's just, to me, it's like, it's the family that really holds the vision.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you shared that, because it does feel like, obviously, like we're not starting at square one, but truly, like, and this is just the real talk of it, is like it really does. Like in last night, our conversations and where we were having a disagreement about me working and also, her right now being a little bit undernourished when she's with Luca all day and not getting a break. And, it's stuff that we've never been in this position before. And so, yes, like we have a very clear vision of the future, like I would say large. And now there's infinite number of nuances that happen in a day-to-day thing. So one of the things that we had this discussion last night, and this was in my head, I don't know if I worded it in a question that I asked you exactly like this, but I was like, okay, with where we are right now in this vision of life, with these responsibilities and these roles that we're currently playing, what is going to be the vision of the future? And is there anybody out there that is modeling what we're like seeking to embody, where like, she still has room for her professional passions and creativity to grow and expand, which is huge for her. And she loves being a mom, and I'm a very present father. And also I'm very driven and feel very fulfilled by the work that I'm doing. So, who else is having a very conscious relationship where both people have found some way to manage and balance professional pursuits while also being very at home with the child? And also, like, I mean, we have Lauren's mom watching Luca right now in the other room, but up to this point, we really haven't accepted or brought in any help. Like occasionally her mom would watch, but really it's been all Lauren and then also my support as well. So it's not like we've had Luca in daycare, and this is a whole new arena for us. Like, and I'm very grateful for the tools and the experiences, like all that stuff, and how to manage self and how to breathe and how to open conversations. Like that has supported us so well. And the terrain is super different right now. So we're still, we have an overarching vision, and now it's like, how is this going to look in real time? And so these drives at night have been such a powerful space, because there's no distraction.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. It's just the phones aren't on unless we're playing Krishna Das, like a little man to sleep. But it's a solid hour of just full presence, no distraction, and just going around our little town, and just, it's beautiful at night, and there's some places of water and stuff like that. So there's some cool visuals, but it's, the car can be an incredible place to have some of these discussions. But oftentimes when you take road trips, what do? Like we just put on an audiobook or turn on music, or just like, not use that as an opportunity, but we're really engaging in that. And so we're still very much in that process, and we're learning real time, and we are challenged. And also this is something that we both consciously signed up for. Like I've had the recognition last night and multiple times, like even though I'm very challenged, I signed up to be the best man and leader I can be for myself, for my family, and then for the people I serve. And sometimes, it doesn't either feel fair or whatever, but it's the fucking work. It's that's what I'm here for. And so, it doesn't make it any easier, but I know that conversation is something that, at a surface level, maybe I don't want to have, but at a deep level, I'm like, no, like we're having this right now. Like we're going to open this and share what's real inside. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys asked that question.
And also too, just to kind of encapsulate that, like there's seasons of life. And I think like, if you have a high level dream, there's going to be a lot of seasons in between that, like achievement or whatever you feel like you're like, we've arrived, and I mean, there's lots of different seasons. Right now it's the thick of having a baby, like, and that may not feel like the vibration of more professional dreams or whatever it is. But I think what you said too is like, we did sign up for this, and we don't know when we set an intention for this high level dream, like we don't really know what that's going to even turn into. Right. But the day-to-day presence, I think is monumental. Like that makes all the difference. Like if we are present for whatever comes and whatever goes, like that makes me for a much more peaceful life as opposed to like, I'm waiting to get there. Like your whole life will go away. Yeah. Even I see parents say that all the time. It's like, I can't wait till he talks, or I can't wait till this, or I can't wait till we can travel together. Can't wait till, and I've certainly had all those thoughts, and I like try to check myself. I'm like, I'm right here. Like, I'm like watching my baby breathe. Like what more beautiful, like there's nothing else, So,
and also you're going to look back on these moments and be like, oh my God, when he was so tiny and he was so squishy and he couldn't talk, when you get to the terrible twos and they're screaming and throwing fits, you're like, oh, remember when he was so tiny and couldn't talk?
Right. It goes both ways. Totally.
Yeah. There's beauty in it all. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, you guys. And it's really refreshing to hear from you guys. And I had a feeling, I had a strong sense that this is what the conversation would feel like, just because observing you guys and knowing a little bit about you, you're in it, and you're, like you said, Mike, like learning real time. And, as we approach in the next year or so, like thinking about having a child and all of that, I'm currently like reading the books and listening to the podcasts, and I have my doula and my midwife and my birthing center all lined up and everything for, they're just on tap whenever whenever it happens, because it could happen at any point before the planning stage. But, we're having more conversations about it and trying to make nothing off limits, so that when we get into the hard stuff of like where you guys are, where it's like we're in the thick of it, we're figuring this out, it's new terrain, it's not a foreign feeling to want to dive into the harder conversations. Or after a long day, it's like, this isn't going to go away. Like, we're both going to sleep better if we have this conversation. And I appreciate that you guys are willing to share that and share your insight and wisdom. And because we're on the, the front end of that, in sort of like the preparation phase of hopefully stepping into that adventure exactly how you guys are.
Well, and I probably speak for a lot of people, and maybe it's just my personality, but I'm burned out by the 5 steps to parenting, and like take the course to parenting. And I'd rather just be like, how about we talk to some people that we know are really balanced and really conscious, and just get a glimpse as to how it's going and like what's going on. Yeah. Because I'd prefer to learn in a realm of reality versus a sales funnel. Like another thing that I'm really curious about is, and something I've been reflecting on often, is there were these ideas of marriage and parenting that growing up in our world, which was a Christian community, evangelical, conservative, relatively traditional. And we obviously followed the path of what marriage looked like in that domain, and it did not work for us. And so we've been in a series of years reestablishing how we would define marriage. Or even just, partnership as we have it now. What has that looked like for you guys, both in the relationship realm? What was your thoughts on marriage, growing up? How did that look? How was it modeled? How does that look now that you've engaged in that? And then additionally, parenting and stepping into that new role. How is that different and or the same from what it looked like for you growing up?
Yeah, we had very different upbringings. I mean, we both have, families that we love and, have just different, but I would say like culturally different in the sense of he grew up in a Catholic religious home and school. I don't want to speak for you, I'll let you speak for you. And that was like a big void in my life. It was kind of more of the narrative of like, against organized religion. And, I've really felt like, I've always been spiritual. I've had like a touchstone to, nature being my source and my spirit, and really feeling connected in that way. But honestly, that structure that I witnessed, like I wanted to go to church, and I didn't want to go to church to like be told what to believe. You know, I'm sure there's lots of wounds that can happen in that container. But I remember asking Mike, I was like, because I was like, you're a pretty bad example of how Catholic school goes wrong. You know, like you're making it look pretty good, like in terms of like who he is like how he lives his life, you know? And I asked him maybe a year ago or something, I was like, how did that upbringing serve you? You know, like what was like the silver lining to, you know, all of the Catholic upbringing? Because that was something that I was really thirsty and starving for, of like that community, that like the structure, the family unit, like, you know, playing board games at night, like that. And, you know, that could all be a complete fucking illusion, you know, but that's how, as a little girl, I experienced a traditional family unit to be. And I longed for that. So yeah, we're not religious by any means, but we do have a deep spiritual practice. And I was sharing with a dear friend who's navigating potential divorce, or, you know, a challenging time in her relationship. And what I kept coming back to is advice or whatever. I was like, I see now, and I'm realizing more every day, how the cornerstone of a union, of a family, of a marriage is that like that spirit molecule, that like that something bigger, something higher, something, that unifying force of spirit, because the mind can't take that burden. It'll destroy you both together, right? The heart is not too vulnerable. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, but it can't absorb all that either. But like, what is the thing that gives you strength and gives you, you know, unifying principles and something to turn to and lean on? That for me has been spirit, you know, and so I can see how with the right application, you know, religion or whatever your faith is like, is so necessary to get you through those hard times. And I don't think it has to be, you know, defined or on paper or anything. For me, actually part of our, like, when we conceived, it was, so he proposed on our 2nd year anniversary. But a couple weeks before that, we ended up getting pregnant. But I didn't know we didn't know I was pregnant when he proposed.
Oh, wow.
And it was intentional, like, are we going to try doing this thing, you know, with unprotected sex and all that? And in that moment, I had a very conscious surrendering, because there was a story in my mind. Like, in order to feel safe to carry a child and to have a baby, part of me wanted to be married first. I don't know where that came from, but I was like, literally in the moment, we're making love, and I was like, throw that shit away. Like, it will like whatever is meant to be will be. Trust, Lauren, like surrender, let go. 2 weeks later, he proposed to me. I had no idea that was coming. Aww. And then 2 weeks after that, I found out I was pregnant. So it was like, source knew, right? And like part of me knew, but it really took, like, who knows if that would have happened had I not been like, just let it be, you know, like trust and whatever it is. Like, if I'm pregnant before, if I'm pregnant after, like, fortunately I got because I think the reason I wanted to be married is because I wanted to be chosen first, as opposed to, like, there might have been a story in the back of my mind, like, is he only proposing because I'm carrying his child, you know? And
that's a valid thought. It's a valid question. I mean, not saying anything about you, Mike, but just women in general, bringing that, you know, it's self-protection, self-preservation, child protection, you know.
Sure. Valid. And one of my, like, core wounds is like that I'm a burden, or that, you know, like, so all of these, like, anything done out of obligation to me is just like, it's scary. It doesn't feel good, all of that. So it ended up being kind of the perfect narrative, you know, for the beginning of something amazing. But it was really interesting. Like, to me, that was like a universal test. Like, in that moment, it was like, are you really ready for this? Because this is what it's going to take, and it's going to require you fully surrendering into what will be. So
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So maybe I'll backtrack. So our families both are amazing, very different. My family, both mom and dad, are from Sicily. My family's like, if you guys seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's exactly my family, but Italian, like amazing, just so loud and dramatic,
animated,
and like, I still always have this vision of my Aunt Lucy, thick accents. she like, she's the best. I remember one, I roasted a whole or half of a lamb for like Christmas or something. She like, just like, no one used plates, just reaching, grabs a hunk of meat, just gets a little gravy. And she's just like, as she's flinging the sauce, she's like, Mikey, it's so good. And I'm like, oh God, what the fuck? Like, that's my family. And, but that traditional component, like I'm named after my grandfather, and he, we lived with him for many years when we first moved to California when I was young. And he really took care of me and my brother a lot. And so, I mean, there's infinite, like, it's so cool that Lauren's getting to experience a lot of these traditions around making limoncello. And like, I mean, I was like salting olives, like buckets and buckets, and roasting peppers and making marmalades, like, and my whole grandfather's garage, an entire wall, a whole wall of cabinets is full of tomatoes. Oh, sorry,
you're doing it right
now. Tomato sauces. And so I think really growing up, you know, I had a really strong, like, Sicilian cultural connection of a lot of old school traditions. There was always people over at the house. Everyone was always helping out each other. So I really grew up with that. And now looking back, even though I've definitely had a lot of challenges and struggles around the religion component, the one thing that I will say, because when she had asked me that question, how has it served me? I was like dumb. Like there was so much pain around that for me personally that like, it was actually a really beautiful invitation, because the last, you know, even before the last 5-10 years before that, I was like, it was all like the pain and trying to like heal that. And then I was like, well, okay, there are ways that it has served me. It has supported me. It was a place where, you know, we didn't go to church all the time, but it was another tradition. Or when we'd go to Italy and stuff like that, we'd go to specific towns of specific saints. And like, so I like appreciate that. And it's so intertwined in Italian culture, you know, so that was kind of the model that I grew up with. But in terms of one of the biggest things I really appreciate that you said, that component of spirit. And to add to that, I think for me, what I'm learning is that what marriage represents to me, and you guys kind of shared it maybe in a different lens as well, but it's this commitment, and big word meaning commitment. It's a spiritual commitment to continually falling in love with the person every single day. And it's like, you guys are lifelong learners. We're lifelong learners. Like, we're on this path. And so, I mean, whether it's the courses that we're taking or whatever it is that we're going through, like I mean, we're all new people every day. However, especially in light of having a son and witnessing him and all this dynamic, like really every single day is completely new. And so I think part of it for me is the commitment to have the courage and the curiosity and the commitment to recognize like that who she was yesterday is not who she's going to be today, potentially. And so can I also create an openness to allow that version of herself and the shedding of identity? Because if you were to look at her, 2 years ago, still like Lauren, obviously like the core, but so different. And even who I, am today. And, for you, Chase, just to share this, like I know we've shared like some more of the challenges that we're experiencing, but, man, brother, like the challenges are intense and they can be, but it's acute. And like what's on the other side, like when people were telling me their stories, most people only told me like, you're not going to get sleep, this sort of shit. And I was like, well, what's the fucking good stuff about it? Yeah. I understand like there's going to be challenges, understood, heard. And like, what do you love about it? And man, guys, like it is exponential, the challenges versus what it's given to me and us in relationship. I was telling you, Mimi, like, yeah, like my work feels amazing right now. Like I feel really on purpose. I'm loving it. And family is hands down, no shadow of a doubt, the best thing in my life, without a doubt. So, there's these acute challenges and it is a call up to leadership and there's all that, but fuck, it is like, it's been, and I'll share one more thing and then I'll pause. I could never have imagined, like I thought being a parent was going to be me teaching him and like, I'm going to be his guide. I'm going to be the gardener. I'm going to be this for him. I cannot believe, And I'm continually humbled at how healing it's been for me to hold him and hold and feel the innocence and the purity. And also partially like, you know, selfishly too, like to use him as a vehicle to help me heal, you know, at 8 months old. What did I really need that maybe I didn't know how to ask or didn't receive? So holding him, like I do a lot of kind of like felt visualization or whatever of connecting with him, sending him love, and then being with that. This guy can eye gaze for a long time. Well, connect. It's pretty impressive. It doesn't break. And then being with that, and then also imagining like I'm holding my younger child, my little Mikey, and then being with that, and then even going a step deeper, and then imagining my father when he was 8 months old and holding him. And it's like this generational component. So that's been one of the biggest surprises, is how healing it's been for me. And I was not nearly expecting that.
Wow.
I'm like getting emotional listening to you, because I've heard a lot of dads talk about how it's awesome being a father. I have many siblings and many nieces and nephews and a big extended family, and I've not heard anyone talk about that father-son or father-child experience that way, where just being with your son, holding your son is actually actively like healing you on an energetic level. And it now in this moment, and then past for little Mike, like, man, that is
really beautiful.
So beautiful and such a gift, I'm sure, to Lauren, your partner. Like hearing you say that, like, how do you feel, Lauren, when you hear him talk about your family and your son that way? Like, I imagine just like feeling like an explosion in your heart. Like, my heart can't hold all the love.
Exactly. And I mean, gratitude, and I feel so blessed. And I also feel like I chose well, like the Spirit chose well for me. And I'm so, I've shared our, a little thing I've said is like, this feels like the bonus round life for me. Like I fucking love my life. I love our life. I love what we create, co-create. And it's like, to me, it's just beautiful to see, because that's a gift to Mike too. Like what a gift to be able to experience that. And then I think going back to just like the presence, it's like like that's here for all of us. Like we all have that opportunity with our children, with our friend, with whomever, to be so unbelievably present and overwhelmed with the gift of all of these lives, but I mean, when it's your child, it's undeniable, and then again, too, to just have that like practice of presence to witness it, because there could be many fathers that have some version of that, but is their partner present enough to witness it? Are they present enough with themselves to drop into it? Is the child, in an environment to experience that? Like, and I think what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, the chaos that is life, it is an intentional day-to-day choice to diffuse that chaos, especially in your home. Like that's created. I mean, I think that those opportunities, those spaces, the peace that we create and cultivate in our home lead to those opportunities to really just have these profoundly beautiful gifts of presence. Like, I mean, it's amazing. And he deserves so much credit for, how he's lived with such intention for so long. It's like, I think it would be unwise to like assume that just like happens because our son is so amazing or because he's so amazing. It's like, no, it's been a lifelong practice of how to be able to show up that way for himself, for me, for our son, and the same for me. Like we've learned these things in day-to-day practice. It's all the little things combined, not these big, like you have a baby and you're just like, I mean, for sure, oxytocin, like you're blown out of the water. Your just heart is just exploded. And like, how do you keep that? You practice it. You create rituals in your life. You have the conversations. You witness each other, to like and have him see me like breastfeed, and these like, it's just, it's magic. Right. But I think really like slowing down and being present. Without presence, none of that is possible.
Yeah.
And I think so often in our society, we're going so fast, like even all the way up to like when our conversation around dating or like, finding your person, it's like, slow the fuck down, because those like soul conversations and heart connections don't happen at the speed of a swipe, like that's all your ego BS. Right. So I really think those profoundly treasured moments are found in the pauses, and it takes a lot of practice to pause, I think, for most of us humans.
Absolutely. We think that through sheer force and will, we're going to be able to get these profound experiences in life. And it's actually when we surrender, and sometimes we're forced to surrender because we're so burnt out from the gas pedal being all the way down. And if we actually take a practice to surrender and pause more, I think we'll have more availability for having our minds blown and pivoted into a brand new direction. I'm curious for you, both of you guys, how the definition and the role of father and mother look, how you would define them. If you asked me 10 years ago, what does it mean to be a father? What's the role? I'd be like, okay, protect, provide, love, and teach. And all those are super valid, but they're pretty 3D world components. I think if I had to answer the question now, not having a child, I would probably layer in a spiritual aspect to it as well. But I would imagine I won't know it fully. I won't have that answer fully until I'm in that seat. So I'm curious as to how both of you now in those roles of mother and father would define or describe what it means to be the parent.
So there's a few things that come up. Well, one, I think if father represents, if like mother represents Luca's relationship to himself and his body, and that there's that component. If father represents his relationship with the world, one of the things is collectively as parents, but also I really feel my role is the overarching thing is to teach him to navigate the world and be fully himself. To feel safe enough and comfortable enough and grounded enough that he can navigate the challenges of the modern world, but still stay who Luca is at a core. So I feel like fostering that, and as best of my ability, representing that and guiding that process, I think is going to be a big key. And then the other thing that comes up is one of my favorite books that was so powerful. It's called The Soul of it's not Soulful Discipline, The Soul of Discipline. And I think that discipline component is really important. But what it was sharing, which I really feel resonant with, is the role of both of us, but especially my role in embodying that component for him, is going to change in different phases of life. And so there's 3 distinct phases. So in the early on phases, let's just, I don't remember the years, but let's say 1 to 7, we primarily serve the role as the governor, because he doesn't really understand what's hot, what's cold, what not to cross the street. Like that's where we're really establishing those healthy boundaries. And I really think this is also where a lot of parents get into trouble. It's like, we've had actually multiple conversations on this. It's like when you're a little kid, like you actually want that. You want boundaries, because if you don't have boundaries, shit gets all like crazy. And then you see kids who are completely, verbally abusive to their parents and all that sort. So in these early years, it's providing a safe space and the boundaries in the container and being that governor. And then it transitions towards like maybe in the adolescent years to being the gardener. And then as we're being the gardener, we're like, letting them come into their own, but we're also watering the seeds and letting it grow a little bit and kind of like nudging him along or her along. And there's a whole thing around that. And that's a certain amount of years as the primary role. And we fit all these roles at different times, or they kind of interplay. But then as they grow up and as they get older, then we serve the role as the guide. And then we're essentially being like the trusted advisor, and we don't have to play that role if we hopefully spend enough time in the governor. Like they should know their own boundaries. And so there's like kind of these 3 distinct phases. And that was really helpful for me, because I'm like, what do I do? Do I like do I be the best thing is to be the super nice guy or whatever, the nice dad, and give him this and I'm like, no, like based off like my role is to, again, prepare him for the world. And a part of that, especially early on, is giving him those boundaries and that structure, and then nurturing those three phases.
Yeah. Oh man, I love.
So good.
Good.
I wrote that. You said it was the soul of discipline.
The soul of discipline. Somewhere read. Yeah, the soul of discipline. Yeah, I'll send it to you afterwards.
Like
really good.
Is that a book?
I don't think it's soulful discipline. I think it's the soul of discipline.
Soul of discipline. Yeah. Is that a book that you recommend for anyone, men and women, or is it targeted towards men?
100% both parents.
Okay.
Like we actually are trying to have it be prerequisite, not prerequisite.
It is prerequisite for my dad.
For my dad before he gets
it's like because I mean,
please.
No, I mean that's a whole side story. But it's just
He's great.
Our natural urge as parents, or as grandparents or whatever, is to keep our babies safe, like first and foremost. You want to keep them alive and well. And I think we all have different approaches at that. And really we're trying to keep ourselves safe in that, we're responsible for this other creature, human. So I'm just like, my dad is very much like, kind of like out of the womb expects kids to be adults, like have like all of their etiquette down. And like, so I'm just like, Dad, like you need to learn, like, I know your approach is from a good place, but like, he's a baby, so just kind of backstepping a little bit. I love what you said. I think and I think what I hear from that too is really like the father structure and container, and that like safety and that providing and protecting thing that you gave voice to, Chase. Like those all come up for me in terms of role of father for sure, and mother. And I think it's unique being mother because, up until, even now, I feel like my son is an extension of me, like his physical substance, his spiritual substance, like he is me. And even more so when you're pregnant and carrying a life, you're one and the same. I've never been a mother until now. And to me, it feels like a continual life force drip into this other human, like literally whatever I do for myself is going to overflow into him. Whatever I do not do for myself is not able to flow to him. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think really like what our work is as moms, and it's a lifelong journey. Like it's self-management, it's self-nurturing, it's self-nurturance and nourishment. And really just remembering that like for a long time, you're one and the same, and so it's so important. It's vitally important to be taking care of our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual needs, because they imprint all of it. All of the stuff that I'm feel incapable of, like he takes that void and, fills in the gaps, right? With his stories, with his lack, or whatever it is, like they're always watching and they're always absorbing, especially as like probably the most permeable substance there is like this little perfectly pure, innocent baby, So, I think you can kind of go down a rabbit hole of, there can be like fear there too. It's like, cause everything I do, like he's absorbing, like good or bad, and I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as moms, to like do it perfectly. And there's no such thing. Right. And like, I think that there's no way to save our child from the pain, the challenges, the suffering. And that's like our urge, right? Like at a primal level, like we just want to keep them safe and to, have them thrive. And the karmic joke is, that in order to thrive, you have to go through challenges. You have to struggle. You have to fall. You have to like the first time I heard him cry, like was something that I did was he got so scared. I turned I didn't know my phone was on full volume. And of course it opened Instagram to some like obnoxious reel. Yes. And it was like like when I was nursing him, and he just looked at me and lost it. And I was like, I'm a terrible mother. It hurts just that cry, so just long story short, like we're trying to avoid that. And I think like a mother's role is to, it sounds cliche, but to like nourish herself so that she can nourish and nurture her child, because there's no separation, and like, I think that the role of the father is absolutely imperative, and it's different and it's necessary. And like, the mother is like that first line of defense, you know, and like that is the cornerstone of the family unit when you have children. So it's so easy to, and this is my work too, is like to not meet everyone else's needs before my own. And that's been a long going story of mine, you know, of how I've learned to navigate life, to be in service. And it's the most obvious opportunity to be in service when you have a kid. So just getting all those things in check. I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh, beautifully. It's perfect. We're just letting you flow. We love it. I love that you touched on the sense of self, being so literally, you know, this baby is of your body. It's also of Mike's body, of course, but one of you has to carry it, obviously, carry him. And so it's like, I think I certainly hear this from not only our audience and followers, but also friends and family members who are navigating, mothers specifically, navigating, like, I know what so many mothers around me, you know, have struggled with, losing your sense of self and forgetting who you were before you were a mother. You know, what was I into? What was I passionate about? How did I create? What did I create? And you can sort of, I imagine, obviously I'm speculating based off of what people tell me, but you get so wrapped up in this being that is of your body. It feels like you. It feels like you're still pouring into something that is also yourself. But then, you know, when they get to be a certain age, it's like you've almost forgotten a little bit of who you were before you had kids. And I can see the tension there, because you want to pour yourself into your child, but then you also need to also provide the masculine structure for yourself. Obviously, your partner can provide that to some degree, but we also have to provide that for ourselves and contain that, so it's not the smothering mother or the mother that loses her identity completely, and then she's not being fulfilled or feeling fulfilled in life. And so I love that you touch on that. It's something that I think about a lot, kind of prophylactically, like, what can I do now? How can I lean into myself so that I am as prepared as I can be, I suppose, and feel like I have some tools in my toolbox, and also mentors and people that I look up to and admire who have navigated this in a conscious way. One other thing that I wanted to bring up is, I thought of something that a friend told us recently. Chase and I were having dinner with one of our really good friends, and I asked her, what's the best and worst part of being, or no, I said, what's the best and the hardest part, not worst part, the hardest part about being a parent? She had a really interesting answer, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. She said, well, this is kind of lame, I guess, but they're the same. It's that you love this being so much, which is wonderful. It feels wonderful, but you love them so much. The thought of them being hurt or challenged in some way or manipulated, or, you know, even just physically falling down and skinning their knee, it's like, oh, my baby, you know, it's like you love them so much that's actually the hardest part, is that it physically hurts you to see them in pain or challenged in some way. And I thought that was a really interesting answer, and I can totally feel that from afar. But curious your guys' thoughts. What's the best and most challenging part in your opinion?
That's such a good question.
I would say the hardest part is really just surrendering into the unknown, you know, like, we don't know. And I think that that's kind of like a big statement to say, like, literally, we don't know that tomorrow's guaranteed in our own life, with or without a child, right? But literally that extension of yourself out in the world, vulnerable to anything and everything, and just the uncertainty of, like, we don't know. Like, that's the hardest part for me, because I know that at a spiritual level, like, I can't protect him from all those things, right? And it's inevitable. Like, something will happen, right? Like, challenges are to come. And maybe, like, in the same note, like, the best part is knowing that we're here for it. Like, I'm so here for navigating this life with this family of mine, you know, and I feel equipped and empowered to the best of my ability to just make it a hell of a ride, like, for as long as it's going to be. And really just like the tenderness and like unconditional love that you see in a co-creation, like that is a life that is it's just, I mean, it's magic, and that magic is the best part because it's like it's so divine. It's crazy. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Love that.
I was never really like a kid guy before. Like never really like, I imagine I wanted maybe some kid, but it never really was something I really spent a lot of time thinking about. And if you put me in a room of kids, like I could maybe hold their attention for 5 minutes and then I would lose interest or something like that. So like, I was just like never a kid guy. Real. Yeah. I was just like, I'm working, that's whatever. That's my path. And it just never really put much thought or.
Do you feel seen, babe?
I feel seen. I always say, because my brother's got 3. He's had 3 girls in the last year. He's twins.
Wow.
And just completely wild. My sister's got kids, and I love kids. They're freaking awesome. They crack me up. But I always say like, it's the last thing I'd choose on Netflix. It's not that it's bad. It's just probably the last option. I have a bunch of other things in my queue. And
I love it.
And it's no shade.
It's real.
No shade on kids. It's just that, like, quite literally, it's not what I think of. I've got 10 other things that default go into my head before kids.
Sure.
So
and I totally identify with Lauren. We're totally hijacking Mike's answer here, but I wanted to say this before. Like, I totally resonate with you, where it's like, I love kids. I've been around kids. I can, babysit or whatever, but like, I haven't had that burning passion, desire my entire life. Some women are 6 years old and 15 years old and 20 years old, and they always know, like, I am meant to be a mother. It's like, yeah, I probably will be, but like,
sure,
maybe, I don't know. And so you don't have that like burning passion. But certainly in the last year, I've felt that dial turn up in me organically. And it's kind of like, whoa, what's this? I have not felt this before. Like, why am I fantasizing about Chase being like holding a child? Or like when I see him interacting with our nieces, I'm like, oh, like just like melting. Why? This is not a thing before. So anyway, sorry, Mike, back to you.
No, back to you.
And well, one thing that brings up is, I've shared this with Lauren and other people. For me personally, I've realized that the most important decision, well, 2 of the most important decisions. The first was to choose the type of purpose-driven work that I'm doing now. I think that was absolutely critical, because without that, the sense of fulfillment and joy and like really understanding why I'm here, like there'd be a massive void inside me. So I think that was number 1. And then number 2 is choosing who I want to do life with. It wasn't even just to want to have kids, because like if that choice, which is for me, the continual commitment to, the pursuit of growing together and refalling in love and truly doing life together, like that's why I was like, when I asked her to marry me, it was actually after one of the retreats that we do together. Lauren does all the food and a bunch of stuff, but it was just this full body yes. And as soon as I knew that, that's when I had asked. And I really feel like whether kids would have come in or not, like wasn't really the important thing. The important thing was choosing who I wanted to do life with, and then surrendering to whatever this thing's going to turn out to be. And so for me, and one funny quick side note story, like, my brother's got 2 kids. And so the youngest one is about, I think like right now, like 3.5, and she's an absolute doll. The oldest one. Yeah. And, I was over there, and literally for an hour, and he's like, you want to go play with Amelia? I was like, yeah, sure, I can play. So we go in he's got a garage gym, and literally for an hour and a half, I sat down and took food orders. And the same thing, she would ask me, what would you like to eat? And I was like, okay, I would like 1 hamburger, 2 ice creams, and 3 hot dogs. Okay. And then she'd get up and pretend like she's writing on a wall, and then she would come back. What would you like to eat? Same question. We did this for an hour and a half, and I got all the way up to 20, like 13 popsicles, 14, and literally for like 90 minutes. And I was like, Amelia, can Zio Mike go to the bathroom? And I was looking for a way out. She's like, nope. And I was just like, oh my God, if this is what kids are like.
Yeah, dude.
But however, now having Luca, I think there's so many sweet parts, but doing it together and doing it together as a team while having this just innocent, pure, like his name is Luca, which means light in Italian. So like this literally like literal and metaphorical light, and to witness that and to feel that and to see it's changed everything. My perspective around my work, our relationship was great before, and now it's like levels deeper. So I don't really have one solid answer, but just his light and how it's like illuminated a brighter light inside of us is probably like the sweetest thing, and to be a steward of that and to be like blessed with that gift. And then I think the most challenging thing for me is, and maybe it's because like of last night's thing that we brought up, earlier, it is a big call to responsibility, like to do it consciously.
Yeah.
There's no like, so, and I've shared this with people like it, and I'm sure the lessons will continue to like each phase, like there'll be a new big lesson, but the last big lesson was fatherhood has felt like on one end, this massive call to responsibility and maturity. But then on the other end, it's also this huge invitation to play. And this like, and for me, especially like in light of specifically like the Enneagram, the path of growth for me is the path of the 7, the light characteristics, which is the playfulness, the adventurer. And so Lauren has been incredibly healing for me because she loves to play. And for me, play, not that I like when I was a kid, but now I would play. But now the story's always been play takes me away from getting shit done.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And so there's like, I don't got time to play, or like how I envision playing is by studying.
Yeah.
And Lauren plays. Yeah. So Lauren, just through her like feminine and who she is, she loves to play. And I never understood what sarcasm was. I'm learning.
Still doesn't, honestly. like very literal man over here.
Yes. So, but she's invited so much in that. And then now Luca, it's with them too. It's on a whole nother level. Like I dance all the time. I sing all the time. And this is one thing, I don't know why I keep feeling called to share this with you, Chase, but just seeing a brother in front of me and like, at least what was described to me about fatherhood, and it was just the people I was talking to, and I'm thinking about one in particular, the advice or the words that I was getting outside of like people like Dr. Nathan and stuff like that, like he had some serious wisdom to share. But it was like for the first 2 years, Mike, it's going to be about mom. Like, just like give it up. Like it's going to be about mom. And I was just like, I told Lauren, I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
That's really
like,
disheartening.
I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
And so there was
like,
this.
yeah, you don't have boobs. You don't have a place, right? It's like,
I was like, I didn't sign up for that. Like, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And so it was in the beginning, especially, it was this search for like, how can I, outside of helping her in whatever means I can, providing financially or just getting food, whatever it is, just like being helpful. It's like, how can I have a role in this boy's life and be a part of it? And that's led me to like, when we're talking about like play and things like that. So before it was so funny, like I started studying Mongolian throat singing randomly enough. I've always wanted to learn it. Yeah, it's like wild, but I was always doing it. And she would like there was never really, outside of a curiosity for me, I was like, I don't really know what purpose this is going to serve. However, it is remarkable because I did it when he was young, the day old,
Wow.
would do that. And he still to this day, he could be losing it. I hold him and boom, drop right into throat singing. And it's just boom. And so that's been the play,
cool.
Like dancing around like a monkey. And then I've realized like she's got her touch, everything that she is, the breastfeeding. And I actually have a tool to help him regulate. He's regulating with my nervous system in that way. And it's such a root chakra tone that it still blows us away. He could be losing it like no other. And then boom, he comes back. and then I hand him to Lauren, and then boom, he falls right asleep.
Wow.
So that's been really cool, like really rad.
That's awesome.
What a
that
gift.
with like the Om sound as well. Like, unless you have an interest in taking up Mongolian throat singing, Chase.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the debut
there's
here. I'm
lots
like,
of demonstrations.
Do you want a demo?
If the invitation's there,
no, we won't make you do that. But
just that
sound
and that safety, like, and that vibration,
Yeah.
kind of similar to like, kids like down regulate when they're in the car, or like whatever. It's like that motion. But like when it's, especially like in the container of like the love and like the presence and like, his soul being like so there and like so much love into that moment. Because it's like not something you can fake. Like sometimes I'm like, you got to switch the octave, go into like more medicine songs, like, cause like the intensity, it can be a lot, but it's really cool. Like I do think that that's like an underutilized, thing that the man can do is like you do have a place, you do have like a need and a purpose, like in those initial times too. And like the skin to skin is so powerful, and really we're all co-regulating, right? And especially when there's an infant involved, it's like they're just desperate for us to regulate ourselves so that they can co-regulate together. And that's like, that's probably actually the most challenging thing is like every moment I need to bring myself back to center to self-regulate in order to have him be regulated. Yeah. And I mean, we have like, our son is pretty damn calm and pretty, like, I mean, people comment like, I've never seen such like a present, like engaged and like happy baby, and like, I don't think that's because of us, but I do think it's like that, creating that environment of regulation, just like safety,
which is
so in ourselves first.
So it is because of you guys. I'll say that. Yeah, it is. It is because of you guys. Like babies and kids are such sponges, and they will match the energy around them. And I think even before they're born, how are we interacting as women who are carrying with the world, with our partner? They're hearing our voice. They're hearing our heartbeat. I think that that's a huge thing, is like, if we're regulating and our heartbeat is boom, 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 versus like breathing up in our chest and yelling and like, the world isn't safe type of thing. So it is you guys, like, take full ownership of that, because that is something to be very proud of. I know obviously he has a lot of life left to live, and you guys are probably still discovering like who and how he's going to be in life. But man, it seems as an observer, like, holy crap, this kid is blessed with parents, and I think he's gonna realize that, and I'm just like, I'm sitting back just in total admiration of both of you and the way that you approach this adventure, and for all of its ups and downs, and just like, wow, deep bow to you both. It's the hardest and most important job on earth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Super appreciate that.
Yeah. I have so many more questions. Like I could go for like literally 3 more hours with you guys. But obviously I want to be, protective and sensitive to your time. I know we're taking you away from your babe
you
right
probably
now.
heard him a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
This has been so enriching.
This has been awesome, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like the older I get, the more I realize how this is actually such a hotbed for healing this world, is in the domain of family. And it's funny, it's not that the world doesn't have resources if you come from a home that may not have stable parenting, but those resources suck. Like you will be funneled into pseudo authority and pseudo parenting, and there's this critical stage of life where dependency on your parents is important. And of course we talk a lot about, especially in the wellness space, rites of passage that have been lost and how important those are, but I think we're still missing the thing that prior to the rite of passage, which is this dependency on your parent and the establishment of love and safety. And if you don't ever have that to the degree, how do you even go through a rite of passage? Because you missed out on the key component to being nutrient dense, thus, missing the parents. And if you walk through life and you roll into adulthood, you'll be funneled into these pseudo authority realms, and you're looking to your government, your teacher, your pastors, your coaches, your bosses for some level of authority presence that will lead you astray and or just piss you off. And there's just this missing component to the establishment in early life of safety and presence and protection and love that comes only from parents. And it's just the older I get, the more I'm seeing that. And that's really, really, really where the work is and how we make change. And it's we get carried away, especially as hustlers and entrepreneurs and people who want to make impact. And we think it's the likes and the counts and the downloads. And it's actually the really foundational stuff that so many aren't seeing because it's not as public. And I'm just inspired and motivated by both of you. And of course I've had some the parenting thing is definitely moving up on the queue for me. And you make it sound so fun and just spiritually inspiring and purpose, right? Like so much of my orientation in life has been like, where and what gives me purpose. And I can't help but just see that embodied in both of you energetically and makes me excited.
Yes. Yeah. Aww, okay. I have one more question. If you guys can spare just a couple more minutes. Yeah. We usually have a question that we ask every guest on the medicine, but I'm going to pivot. And I think, anyone listening can obviously tell that you guys have done a shit ton of work on yourselves in the past and currently. And for this season of life of being new parents, but also doing it in the most conscious way to also nourish your relationship, what are some other resources that you could recommend? Obviously, we got the book Soul of Discipline. Are there any other books, podcasts, resources that were like, oh my God, I'm so glad that we jumped into this either before kid or during, whatever comes up for you?
I've got one that's jumping out at me. So before Luca came, we were in a course that was phenomenal. And we've both had stories around money. And so we were in a program called Wise Money, and it's a very spiritual program with some very rooted, like solid stuff. And I forget the statistic, but how many divorces happen as a result of money stuff. So really getting on the same page of that and committing to that as a couple, because that's all root chakra stuff. So it's like, it's our own root chakras, but then we realize that as parents, again, our nervous systems are going to co-regulate with Luca and that. So I think really having conversations around that, discussing our goals with that, being guided, because we were never really taught, I think most people weren't really taught a healthy relationship with money. And so it's been a lot of our own personal work and collective work. So I really think that conversation, the finances piece, and just being a team on that and opening communication and that course, Christina, what's her last name? Christina Wise. And she's got a book. I don't even recall what it is, but if you, do you recall that? No. So either the course or one of her books, I forget what it is, but just Christina with a K, Christina. That honestly has been, I think, a undervalued, but something that many people, ourselves included, for the longest time looked past, and really taking ownership of that for ourselves. And then the little man, I think, is absolutely critical.
Awesome.
I didn't expect you to say that. I think that's a great suggestion though. 'Cause like at a root chakra level, right? Like there's so much going on with that, especially in partnership, and like your roles shift a lot when, you start a family, for a time being at least. And, I actually took a really different approach with my pregnancy. I'm always like the researcher. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with human design, but I'm like a 1-4. So like the investigator, like I love to dig in. I love to learn all that. And I really took, after doing all this work through my life, and having a really authentic relationship to self-development, I kind of let off the guardrails and was like, I don't want to research anymore. I don't want to learn too much more. But the one foundational thing, I had my diet dialed. I had these core foundational things already established. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to everybody to just wing it, know? But Real Food for Pregnancy is a fantastic book for women, just to get that, again, that nourishment, because you're nourishing another life too. And most people need to learn how to do that for themselves first. And I would also, I don't have a direct resource, but finding a coach or some guide in how, and we still have work to do with this too, which is the main advice that Dr. Nathan Riley gave us too is like, work on your relationship. Like, we fortunately have really good communication styles. We have very aligned values. Like, we don't have like one of those like big T trauma things where it's like, you know, we have to still work through those things. But yeah, working on your relationship and really feeling like you're in a place like, you know, that things are going to shift and you don't know how, but like, I think that the cornerstone goes like, I've always said too, it's like, I want to be your wife first. Like before the role of mother is like, because it's so easy to just, like you were saying, Mimi, to just be like, I am mom now and I'm not his lover first, you know, or like so those things, like getting your priorities in line so that the trickle down effect can actually really naturally occur to our kids.
That's beautiful advice. And I totally resonate with that. It's something that I am already thinking about. And yeah, it's just wild how many similarities and shared values between the four of us. It's like, it is almost like staring into like a future version of ourselves almost. Like it's been really, really nice. Were you going to say something, babe?
Yeah, I was going to say, where can people find both of you? You know, something we didn't get into much is that you've done so much outside of just, you know, parenting in the relationship space. You're both coaches, holistic health, nutrition, performance specialists, have worked with probably countless people at this point, which we'd love to have you back on and get even more into that level of work as well. But where can people find you now? Because you should be checking these guys out, following them on social at the minimum.
For me, Instagram's probably the best right now. I'm kind of evolving my services and getting back out into the workspace. I really want to support women postpartum, especially from a nourishment perspective, pre, during, and after birth. So my screen name handle is Vital Theory, and I'm working on my new offerings and stuff. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome.
Which are going to be you're already doing it, but it's going to be badass.
Nice.
Yeah, I get the benefit. So like when she cooked, like she just cooked, I don't even know, like she cooked like 60 meals before Luca came to like set us up for each of it. That was huge. Wow. That was like game fucking changer. when you're not sleeping, to like be able to have like some shepherd's pie or like a nice
oh my God.
Yeah.
I bought a second freezer. That was like, she's like, I just need a third freezer. Holy shit. She's like, we need another freezer. I was like, we need another freezer? Like, we got a whole cow. We got
best money ever spent.
Yeah, the best money ever spent. Like, I'm so grateful that she did that. And I get the benefit of like when she cooks for other women, like she just did, I don't know, like 40 plus meals for another lady.
Oh my God.
And like, and you know, there's leftovers or there's so like,
it's like meal prep time.
Yeah. She's like, you can cook. I was like, I can cook, but like, I'd way rather like bow down and
where can people find you?
Where can people find me? Yes. Instagram, Mike.Salemi is a great place. My website, MikeSalemi.io, not .com. If anybody's interested in the masculine or men's work that I lead, that brand or branch is called menofmovement.com. And those are the best places. So whether it's for like performance stuff, Chase, like you mentioned, so Bulgarian bags, kettlebells, or really the men's work. And the podcast that I have is called The Path, which Mimi was just on. We'll be releasing that very, very soon. And yeah, those are the best places to find me. And just once again, just really grateful. Like this has been so, we don't get to do, I've had Lauren on my show a few times and I'm always like, feel very honored. And also to have you guys who like, we see so much similarities and like, I just already feel like this heart connection. So it's very special. I just want to like share that. Very special for us to do this. And then to also have you guys facilitating this and us getting to share. Like my heart feels very, very full right now. So thank you.
Yeah, we're all just bathing.
Let's hang out.
Yeah, seriously. We're all just bathing in this love bubble. I love it. Thank you guys so much for being here. You guys listening, thank you for hanging out with us today. Check the show notes for all the links and we will talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.